Hi, St. Swithun. So I want to take a few moments to talk about something important with you, and I thought this little video would be a good way to do it. Last Sunday, our warden, Ross Miller, spoke at each of our services about our giving, especially in light of our current financial situation. In simple terms, our weekly offerings to the end of May are 14% below budget. That's a $45,000 shortfall. So from a responsible warden's perspective, there's a very practical reason for each of us to think about our personal giving to the ministry of St. Swithun's right now. But for the next few moments, I wanted to speak as your pastor about why we might biblically give to the ministry of St. Swithun's. If you were at church on Sunday, you would have received a little brochure that pretty much summarises what I'm about to say today. To begin with, ordinarily, Christians give to their local church. If you consider yourself a member of St. Swithun's Pymble, then it's normal to financially support this ministry. If you're a visitor, if you're new to church, or you're part of another congregation or church somewhere else, we wouldn't expect you to give regularly here. But if St. Swithun's is your church, whether in person on Sundays or online, whether you're active midweek or just come on Sundays, we hope that financial giving is part of how you support our shared ministry alongside your other forms of service. Now, of course, your personal circumstances may limit how much you can give, and that's absolutely fine. The responsible church warden might raise an eyebrow, but the amount isn't the main thing. Remember Jesus' praise of the widow who gave just a few small coins. Why? Because she gave generously from the little that she had. That she gave mattered more than how much she gave. So if you haven't yet begun giving, now would be a really great time to start. Why do Christians give to their local church? Well, here's a few reasons that the Bible gives. First, stewardship. Everything we have belongs to God, and we're accountable to Him for how we use it. Jesus tells parables where a master entrusts resources to his stewards, and then he comes back after a while and returns to settle accounts with them, and the good stewards are commended. Bad stewards who hide or hoard their gift are not. Our money choices often reflect our broader spiritual life. And that's why Jesus said you cannot serve both God and money. Some Christians give as a way of breaking free from the grip of greed. Generosity sets us free from selfishness and helps us to trust God. Another reason to think about is partnership with gospel ministry. Christians have a responsibility to support those who teach and lead in the church. So Paul writes, "The elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of double honour, especially those whose work is preaching and teaching. The worker deserves their wages." And again, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. You can look up those wider passages yourself later on. You see, giving expresses our gratitude to God. We give because He first gave to us. Paul reminds us that though Jesus was rich, He made Himself poor for our sake, so that we might become rich. Third, we are to care for the vulnerable. This was a hallmark of the early church, and it does remain part of our call too. St. Swithun's supports people in all kinds of needs, spiritually, pastorally, socially and financially. We also support mission partners here and overseas. Not all of us are preachers or youth workers or missionaries, but by giving, we set them free to do the work God has called them to. While we're on the topic, it's worth saying, look, just a quick word about why we ought not to give. You see, the Bible upholds our responsibilities to provide for our families and pay our taxes and wisely support ourselves. Giving should be done thoughtfully, not impulsively or to impress anybody. So how much should we give? Well, that's between you and God. In the Old Testament, tithing began at 10% of gross income and then with other offerings added on top of that. Some Christians still do use that as a guide, but in the New Testament there's actually no law about a fixed percentage. Instead, Christians are encouraged to give generously, to give systematically, and in proportion to what they have. So, prayerfully decide what you can give and stick to it, and be glad to share in the work and in the ministry of St. Swithun's. Thanks so much for taking time to consider your giving. As we've seen, giving is both a spiritual and a practical matter. And if you'd like to begin giving to St. Swithun's, just follow the link in this email or in the notes below of this video. Thanks again for listening. I look forward to seeing you again soon.